Geospace. I am Geo, Mr. Gators on America 2018. On today's video, since it is getting closer to Halloween, one of the things that I thought would be a great idea to show everyone would be how to do makeup for different characters. So today we're doing Michael Jackson, and I'm going to give you some really good tips. That way, if you want to dress up as Michael Jackson for Halloween, you'll have the knowledge of how to do the makeup for it. I definitely do suggest to get some theatrical type of makeup. You can go to any of the costume shops. I know here in Arizona we have Easley's Fun Shop, which you can find a lot of the makeups that you need. But definitely, I would definitely recommend them just because it'll blend better. So the ones that I'm using right now, so I'm really actually using really light bases so that we can get that really light skin coloring that you want on the skin. And also shadowing, because we're doing a lot of shadowing, and I'm using a dark shadow. I also have a palette with different shades. Especially you want to make sure you have black in there so you can get the eye lining for the eyebrows and for the eyes. The first thing that I see as far as Michael Jackson's face, if you take a look at it, there's a lot of space between his eyes, as opposed to sometimes, like for example, for my face, the space is very minimal. So we're gonna show little tricks, or I'm gonna show little tricks as to how to make sure the eyes get a little further apart. Everything else, a lot of it is gonna be just contouring and doing this. So let's get started by doing first a base that's a little light, but it's not your all white, okay? The all white will be the second phase to highlight things. So this is the beginning step. Covering everything. As you can see, right now I'm using actually my fingers to do it, but I do recommend also to do a sponge if you're not comfortable thinking with the blending part of it. I know that at the end we'll be using also some powder, and that'll set it in and it'll get away a little bit of the shine that will come from the makeup. It is good to, as soon as you get your base in, to start doing some of that powdering. Now, I don't care about putting a little bit of makeup over my eyebrow. That's not a big issue right now because the eyebrows are actually going to be very dark and defined, and my shaping of my eyebrow is going to change because I actually want to shape it up so that it's really thick here and then thin it up a little higher than my actual eyebrow. So as far as covering it, you can actually completely cover it if your eyebrow is like really off from that shaping, or you can just do a little bit of makeup and it'll cover major parts that you need to cover. Okay? So. Perfect. As you can see, I actually got a little bit of my neck and my ears because I want to make sure that it all looks like it's the same thing. So the next step, after I do my base, I want to start doing some powder, and it's really nice to get a really light powder or also a transparent powder. I'm just using my light powder that I already have. It won't darken a little bit of what you already lightened up. But in this first step, it's not such a big issue because I just wanted to do one coating. Now I'm going to go ahead and go with white and start highlighting some of the parts that I want to make sure they're a little stronger. Now this whole area in the eyes, since I talked about getting it a little bit separated, I want to get it all to almost look like it's on one section, so I'm going to do a lot of white to really get my eyes to kind of have almost like a blank canvas, so I can show you a few little tricks as to how to move the eye out a little bit. If I were to try doing just the white without having the base that's a little lighter underneath, it would actually take a lot more of that white to be able to get it. So think of that color underneath almost as your primer so that the white can get really white. Now his cheekbones were also very pronounced, so I'm going to go ahead and get it really light right here on top and not worry so much about underneath here, because the contrast of the highlight and the shadow is what's going to make it look a little more pronounced. This is what I'm talking about. As you can see, as I'm doing the makeup, my eyebrow, especially like here at the end, it's almost gone. That's what I was talking about. I don't necessarily need my eyebrows covered, but if you yourself have thicker eyebrows, there is special wax for it to be able to cover it. And it's like a softer bar that you can use to cover it. Or you can also use, as many of my drag friends do, actually a glue, and they use glue and glue their eyebrows like a glue stick. And now as I have this base, I will do a little bit of powdering, especially around these edges here, where I have the contrast of the two colors, and right here. Just get a little bit of that powder in, so it's not as shiny, because we are working on layers at this point. Now, when it comes to shadowing, yeah, it's going to be a little bit stronger in the shadowing, because I want, obviously, to have the features that I currently don't have. So I want to make sure I get those lines a little stronger. So first, I'm actually going to use a cream base, and this one actually has different colors. I'm out of this clear one, but this clear one is not as necessary. I do have dark and I have red, which the red is going to be what I'm using for the lipstick, but the dark and this brown is really good for shading, but we're also going to use powder base on that. Okay, so first I'm going to start with the really dark to get really sharp lines. When we talked about our shaping, since I am getting this wider, these lines should not be straight down anymore. I want to get them at an angle. So to get them at an angle, I actually have to go inside my bridge a little bit and go diagonally towards the tip of my nose. Now, as you notice, I didn't go all the way to the tip of my nose because I want to move my tip of the nose a little higher so it shows a pointy nose like he has. So I'm going inwards here, almost like midway. Towards the edge. So as you can see, it's already kind of giving like this really pointy nose just by getting those angles really strong in there. It's going to be shaded. We don't want to leave just lines there on the face. So, but this is how we start the lines, just to mark the lines. Now, because I want it to go up, instead of my nose coming down here, I want to make it really sharp, especially because the nostrils should be more pointed by the nose being smaller. So I want to actually mark the nostrils really coming to a point. A little higher than where my nostrils are right now. So by doing that, I'm already pointing my nose up by going with the nostrils further in. So, can you see a little bit of that difference of what that's making to my nose already? Now, I definitely want to start shading from this really dark down. Now, you can use some powder, and to do that, you basically want a little brush. Or if you feel comfortable doing a little bit of shading with that same brush into this, you can also use that color that you went into and just kind of start blending it down a little bit. Just blend it all the way around almost into the white. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, I definitely suggest use a little brush and do it with the powder. I have a powder here. You can do the same thing. Just basically by doing that, you start eliminating a little more of the lines and creating a little more shadows, because our shadows is really what we're seeing more to get the face a little smoother. We want to see the shadows, not so much the sharp lines. The sharp lines are there because we're actually drawing them in, but we want to see them more like shadows. So I am continuing this line a little higher here because it does have to go definitely into my eyebrow. And when I see my crease on my nose, to get his crease a little more snugger, I'm actually going to shade back up. So I'm going to shade it up into the other shading area. That means that part is going to become like a little darker. I'm doing a little bit shadowing just around that point to make that point very pronounced on the nose. So the shadowing that I do around the nostril that I created is just to give the illusion that that is the bottom of my nose already, even though it's already a little higher than the bottom of my nose. And now I'm going to go back with the black and color in just a little darker over those nostrils. So I'm going almost like a little bit inside of what I already painted. For my nostril, but only to create that really, really dark shadowing in there. Because I do want it to make sure it's very drastic. Now the same color pencil that I just grabbed, I'm going to use it to start marking my eyes. We talked about making the eye a little further out from the inside. So that means that the inside of my eye, I'm going to start painting it right here. Now, Michael Jackson's eyes were really big and pronounced, and he had the eyeliner that made him even bigger. My eyes are a little smaller. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint my eye all the way over here, there, oops, all the way over here, and just follow this line here. The good thing with him is that you can get a really dark eyeliner line and really thick to kind of disguise that. So as you can see, when you look at it, it kind of makes my eyes look a little further out because the edge, the really dark edge, is a little further out, and the really dark edge, I put it a little further apart. Now, to continue that and to get rid of a little bit of that pink in there that we have of our skin color, you can go ahead and go with that brush and get a little closer to kind of give the illusion of making that part really of the inside of your eye. Now we're going to go ahead and do the top part, and the top part I want to go and connect it to that line that we already created, which is a little further out. And I don't want to go all the way to the inside since I already created this little bit of space. So I'm just going to go to where I see that space. So I'm actually just going to like about here. Just kind of create a little bit of that space that I want to see. Now the next section that I'm going to do is mark the eyebrows. Remember, we want to try to mark a little bit of that curve. That's very important, like in his look. So I'm going to, again, start a little further out here. I don't want to accentuate going in too much because then that's going to bring it back in. So I want to accentuate going out. And it is really close to the eye here, as far as it being height-wise. And then I can kind of follow right now my eyebrow arch there. And then when I get to the very top, I want to go on top of my eyebrow, which then I can bring it all the way to the bottom a little bit longer there, which means I'm continuing this illusion that this is the end of my eye because I brought it over a little more. I can get this part like a little nice and thick and then thin it out as I'm going up. This section is what I'm trying to really emphasize, that it's different than my actual face. So using the white can really blend it in and make it a little less noticeable of what my actual features are right there. Like I said, my face tends to be a little bit longer, so one of the things to kind of shorten it up a little bit is I'm going to do less angle and more just across, like this. I can't say enough also about how important it is to define the chin, because Michael Jackson is very well known to have the chin parted. So it's all shadowing that we want to do, correct? So I want to make this part really deep and strong. And then I just go down and blend it. Go down, curve it to the sides a little bit, and just blend it. But again, you can either use the brush or you can use your shadowing brush or shading brush to blend it. Again, like I did for my nostrils, I'm going to go really dark with the black and really point the black and do a little more of that darker color. It's almost like a maroon color that you get to get those really dark shadows around it. As you can see, now you see a little bit of why I keep doing white, and I keep doing white on stuff is because it really works really good, because you'll start seeing that when you put white on top of white, it makes it even that much lighter. So I want to get it really, really light on those areas that we want them to stand out a little more, that we want to get those highlights. I know my chin line, I want it to be really highlighted. I know that I also want to make sure that it looks like I didn't do as much highlighting. So I want to make sure that it kind of blends in a little into my neck. Some parts we want to make sure they're a little stronger just so we can see those lines, but we also want to make sure that it looks like it's part of our makeup and not that just our line gets cut here and then nothing continues into our neck. I always like to have two of these little brushes, and one I use it for white and the other one is for anything else that's darker in color. Now, my lips already look a little bit more like his lips did, so I'm not going to do very much. In fact, I'm just going to start doing the red on them, and with the same brush that I've been doing my coloring. Since it already has a little bit of dark in it, I'm just making the edges more pronounced, and I'm really going all the way to the edge of my mouth because his mouth is really wide, and that actually will also help give this whole look a little sharper down. So I'm not really going to pronounce my arch as much. There's nothing wrong if your mouth tends to be a little smaller to continue this line outside of your actual lip, and also the one that's going underneath. So you can already see this side as opposed to this side, how I went a little bit out of my actually lines of my mouth. Just a little bit. It depends on how much you need. I always say if I move my eyes out a little bit, I have to extend it to almost like the middle of my eye. That's always a good ratio for his face. Now I'm going to do a little more extra powdering, just to finish it up a little bit. Now, sometimes some people really want to mark the chin. It's okay. You can grab your brush and do a little bit of this. And this is, this is for everyone. People that have done makeup, people that haven't done makeup. Go ahead and try it. Try it a few times. And if you think some things really work for you, please let us know. Some things that you say, okay, that didn't work as much for me, but I tried this and this worked. That's good. It's good to help each other out. So here, what I did with this shadowing, I'm just going to go ahead and blend in a little bit because I went like a little darker than what I actually wanted. But I did want it to mark this line a little stronger because it is very pronounced on him. It makes this part nice and continuous with the width of his chin. And so now that I did this, just to finish up my eyes, I'm going to actually grab an eyeshadow, and I usually like to do, well, for this I would definitely recommend the black, to really get this looking like really deep intense dark on my eyes. I'm going to go ahead and powder black on top of that black that I already have on the pencil, which is more cream color. The cream will start fading out and not look as dark. But if you do a little bit of that dark black powder on top of that, you'll notice that it's going to make it really sharp. Now, for Michael Jackson, you can do fake eyelashes on the top. I would recommend them. I'm not going to do it for right now. But if you don't do it, try to do a little bit of line at the end like this. And really shape it so that it looks like your eyebrows are really thick and going up. Because he did have really thick eyebrows. The more that we focus on the contrast of the things that are really dark, I'm actually going to powder a little bit this dark line here for the nose. The more that we focus on having that contrast, I think the more successful you're going to be with the final look of it. See, I even went in there a little bit. So, this is the final look. Next thing we're gonna do is first I'm gonna go ahead and throw on the shirt. I have this really nice shirt that I have my red arm on the side. Just something a little more Michael Jackson. You can do a white t-shirt underneath, grab any black shirt, add a red sash, or you can even do the traditional red shirt that he wears. A white shirt underneath would be great. And then go ahead and put on your wig. And if you want to, you can do the hat on top, which is the look that I'm going to go for right now. So after you get the wig, if you want to, you can always blend in. If you have dark hair like me, you can blend in a little bit of your hair, or you can just shadow a little bit at the end. I think with the hat, gives a good blend to that line by putting the hat like this. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please stay tuned because we will be doing different makeup. You will be seeing Freddie Mercury, you will be seeing also Bruno Mars, and different tips that will help you throughout them. So stay tuned.